The Oracle of Luna is a podcast with me, Bridget Engels, as your host. Here we have conversations with real live, present-day goddesses who are actively and courageously doing their magical work in the world. Each episode is a bewitching journey with relevant discussions on topics such as Wiccan pagan spirituality, writing, culture, magical practices, art, ritual, and the craft in its many forms. Merry meet! Welcome to another episode of the Oracle of Luna podcast. I'm Bridget Engels, your host, and today I'm so excited to bring you a group conversation with some very magical women. We will be chatting about our animal familiars. So I will go around and introduce everybody on the show now. Madame Pamita is a Ukrainian-American witch, teacher, author, candlemaker, spellcaster, and tarot reader. She is the author of The Witch's Guide to Animal Familiars, due out in January 2025, Baba Yaga's Book of Witchcraft, The Book of Candle Magic, Magical Tarot, and co-author of Cancer Witch. She is also the proprietress of the online spiritual apothecary, The Parlor of Wonders, and she lives in Santa Monica, California. You can find her online at parlorofwonders.com, and her familiar is the cat Glinda. Monica Crosson has been a practicing witch, master gardener, and educator for over 30 years and is a member of the Evergreen Coven. She is the author of A Year in the Enchanted Garden, The Magical Family, and Wild Magical Soul, and is a regular contributor to the Llewellyn Annuals, as well as Enchanted Living magazine, and she lives north of Seattle, Washington, in the forests. Her website is authormonicacrosson.com, and her familiar is the cat Zelda. Mael Brigde is a devotee of Bridget and founder of Daughters of the Flame. She is the author of Sun Among Stars, a Bridget of Ireland devotional, and she was a featured performer at the 2024 Bridget of Fogart Festival in Ireland. Mael lives in Vancouver, Canada. Her reviews, blogs, classes can be found on Linktree, /Mael Brigde, #, and her familiars are the wild birds, the starlings in her backyard. I'm Bridget Engels, the producer and host of this podcast, and my familiar is the cat Romeo. Welcome, wonderful witches.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. So, yes, we are here to discuss our magical animal familiars. And throughout centuries, women, witches, and magical people have had familiars. So we're just gonna kind of talk about it a little bit. So I'd like to jump right in and go. We could go around popcorn style. I'm just gonna ask, how did you meet your familiar, and what was the circumstances? Anybody? Jump right in.
Okay, well, this is Mael Brigde. And how did I meet them? Well, I looked out my window. For most of my life, I have been closely associated with cats, which has kept the birds a little bit at bay. But I'm no longer allowed to have pets. And so I've been feeding the wild birds and sitting out in my garden as much as I can. And so it's all of the life out, especially in this one little pocket of the universe where, the finches have grown up here and now the young ones will take shelter at my door and stuff like that. So, but it's the slugs, the plants, everybody here I've made a really strong connection with.
Oh, nice. Monica?
Well, I actually have two cat familiars. And the
Okay.
one that was in the picture, which is Zelda, I was actually meaning to get my black cat in the picture and he refused to be in it. But anyway, Zelda came to us, actually came to my husband. He was fishing on a stretch of road about 20 miles from here, from my home. And there are no homes on either side for miles and miles in this fishing area. And he went down, did his fishing, didn't catch anything, came back up, and there was this about 6-month-old kitten uh, curled up on the hood of the car. So
Oh.
he brought her home, and the kids ran out and said, "Did you get anything?" And he said, "I caught a catfish." And they named her Zelda after a video game. And then Binks, which obviously the connections to Hocus Pocus, my daughter named him Thackeray Binks. He actually, we found him under our front porch as a kitten,
Oh,
and he's been hanging out with me ever since. And Zelda's about 15 and he's about 12.
yeah. Oh, cool. So they're getting up there. But
Yeah,
that's cool that they just wandered into your yard or
they
onto.
did into our lives. Yeah.
So, Madam Pamita.
Well, Glinda came to me. I was traveling a lot and didn't have a cat for over 10 years because I was traveling, going to events and things like that. And I'm like, oh, I don't need to bring a pet into all that mess and, all of that. And so I was kind of a little resistant to getting another cat. But then I had mice in my house. And so I'm like, well, a solution to that is to get a cat. So I looked online at the rescue near me,
Mhm.
and there was a beautiful little black young cat, teenage cat, I would call, not quite a kitten, but a little, not quite grown. I said, oh, that little black cat is just like my old black cat, Lewis, that I had 10 years ago. I'm going to get that black cat. So I went to the shelter. It was there on Friday. They were listing it on Friday. I went first thing in the morning, Saturday morning, waiting outside till they opened up. And I went in and they were like, somebody went to the pound and adopted that little black cat. But we have this little white and tan cat here. And I was like, I picked her up and it was an absolute yes. As soon as I picked her up, I knew that was it.
Aw.
So the little black cat was, I think, the messenger to bring me and Glinda together. And of course, the mice went away. She has a big hobby of hunting. She's a big hunter, but she's also wonderful as a familiar and is very magical, extremely magical. So yeah.
Cool. So here's my next question. As a witch and magical person, what makes your relationship with your familiar special? Like how do you make magic together?
You want to tell
Anybody?
who? You need to call on us so we know because we
Oh,
can't
All
hear
right.
I'm
each
lightly
other.
waiting.
All right. Mail.
Okay. Um, how do we make magic together? Uh, you know, I think about this and about our relationship a lot, and these birds know me, but I don't think any of them would say, "Oh, I love her. She's my friend." But what they do is, to a certain extent, they trust me, and in fact, there's one chickadee who, if there's no food in the feeder, will sit out there and yell until I come and put some food in there. So we know each other, but the magic seems to be from what I do for them and what I get from them. So my commitment to them is to keep the feeding area as clean and sanitary, because there are some, awful diseases going through the wild bird populations these days. And as interesting and varied as I can in a small space, and to garden in a way that is going to attract more insects, that's going to provide cover for the birds. And, so I do all these things out there for them. And I
Mhm.
don't think of them
Mhm.
as gods, but in a way I propitiate them. I give them offerings every day,
Yeah.
I have that kind of a commitment to them. And what happens for me is that I feel like I grow inside, like how to express it. I feel like everything that I have given to them I've given to myself as well, so that I'm caring for myself in a more loving and personal and affectionate way than I might ordinarily do. So
Hmm.
that's part of it. And another part is when I try to sit outside as much as I can with my book and my tea and just read a little bit and then listen and watch and read a little bit and listen and watch. And I've found that I draw their energy. Wild birds have a lot of energy. Plants too. They're constantly working, but
Sure.
they're doing it in a less frantic, well, unless you're a starling, a less frantic way than I do. And so I pick up their energy while I'm out there, and it's like it softens my edges, and I become more joyful, like over time, but also in that very moment. And there's nothing that I do that has this same effect. And in fact, one day this summer, I was sitting out there and I was calmly reading my book, and I had one hand raised with, the lid to my tea mug in it or something. And all of a sudden I felt this whoosh and a flutter, and someone landed on my head, and I was just about 3 feet from the water cooler, the what do you call it, the bird bath,
Hmm.
and uh, and after a few moments, this bird flew off of my head and to the bird bath. It was a little nuthatch, those tiny little insect-eating birds. They're so wonderful. Had a drink of water, flew away, never even knew that I was a thing that it might want to be afraid of, right?
Right.
Mm.
So
So
Monica,
yeah.
Monica, how about you?
It seems like they are always around, and I do a lot of my magical workings down in the forest that's on the edge of my home, and they will follow me out there, which I love. And I kind of feel that they're this grounding um force, this energy that just keeps me connected and really helps me to calm down and
Mm.
to be in that magical space.
Mm.
I do have a story about Binks, and because he follows me the most. He's the one that will go back and forth down to the river with me and to my ritual space. And so I'm carrying a lot of stuff. So I'm dragging down my ritual tools, and then I'm dragging them back up to my office where I keep
Uh-huh.
them. And one day, and this was like a year or so ago, I dropped my favorite wand, which is this elder wand that I was gifted from this tree. I waxed with beeswax, inserted a crystal. It
Uh-huh.
was my favorite wand.
Uh-huh.
And it did not end up with me when I got home. And
Ooh.
I walked back down. I searched everywhere, couldn't find it. I'm going to say 5 months later, I was going back down to the river, and Binks was sitting in this kind of area with some ivy and just some dried leaves and stuff. And he was just looking at me, and it was the look on his little face. It was, I swear it was almost smug. and, and I went over and I kind of scratched him. And typically, when he's down at the river with me, he'll kind of take off. And he didn't. And right under his feet was my wand. And
Oh.
Ooh,
people
spooky.
believe whatever they want, but I think he found it for me.
Yeah. Or he was
Wow.
holding on to it for you for months.
There we go.
Madam Pamita.
Well, Glinda is my teacher. I feel like she is kind of like the tough headmistress that will inspect your work and say, well, I guess it will do. I always feel like every time I'm doing a candle spell or I'm doing a reading, she comes around and her energy is kind of like, to keep me sharp, to keep me doing my best, right? And, that's what her role is. Now, she had that role. I knew it from the beginning. She would always come around. She'd always check out what I was doing, check out the candle magic I was doing, and so on. But I then had a pet psychic talk about my two cats. So I have two
Ooh.
cats. I have one who's not a familiar, but she's a adorable cuddle bug. I love her. She's amazing. She's a great healer, but she's not a familiar. And he said, and she's gorgeous, right? She's a gorgeous cat. And most people pay attention to her because she's so pretty and she's more vocal and she's just a more of an attention getting cat than Glinda. And the pet psychic is like, your cat Ozma, who's the other cat, she's a cat. But Glinda was a human in a past life. And I had told him nothing about her. He just saw a photo. And then he goes on to tell me she was a mambo in New Orleans. She was a magical worker. This is who she was. And he knew nothing about any of it. So I was blown away. And I absolutely believe that's why she goes around and inspects my work and says,
Wow.
"Oh, you're doing all right, I guess."
Ah, that's fantastic. And I'm curious about the pet psychic. Yeah, how to get in touch with a pet psychic, because our cat Romeo, my familiar, is very tuned into when I do tarot readings and pull tarot cards, and
Mm-hmm.
he'll roll all over the table while I'm doing it, and with a flick of his tail, he'll, sometimes a card will come out, fall on the ground. I mean, that's happened several times, but he's very, very keen on the tarot reading. And also when I do trance work, I do a lot of guided meditations and writing of meditations, and he's very, very keen on that, very interested, and very sits very quietly next to me, almost on my wavelength. So I'd be
Mm.
curious to know this pet psychic or talk to one, because I was thinking that myself, that maybe we had a past life together or
Mm.
something. But yeah, it's interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So, do you think that your familiars have psychic abilities? Mm. And do you connect psychically? Let's start with Mael.
Uh, maybe the cats, but I wouldn't say the birds, maybe the plants.
Mm.
Um, and that just popped into my mind just right now, that there's a different wavelength with the plants
Yeah.
than there is with the birds. So yeah.
Hmm. Mm-hmm. Monica?
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, with my two cats, I mean, they seem to sense my energy, whether it's off or, where I'm at. And they can be a very, like I said, calming influence for me.
Mhm.
The one, I really honestly think that he found my my wand for me. Um,
Mhm.
it's like, I don't know how they can pick up on my
Yeah.
moods, things like that. And
Mm.
it's sometimes when I don't even expect them to be around, don't even need, there they are. And just the way they're looking at me, and they're not either, neither of them are the kind that want to sit in my lap and have any kind of snuggles. But once in a while, like especially Zelda, she'll come up and she'll put her paw on me. And it's typically in a time where I might be feeling some stress.
Yeah.
And so I think she's really attuned to that. And
Mm.
she kind of will kind of crawl up, and there's that little
Mm.
purr that she does that's like, it's
Mm.
okay, mama. I got
Well,
you.
cats are very, very sensitive to vibrations. I
Yes.
read somewhere, and soul energy and auras. And once in a while, like I'll wake up or three around the witching hour, and Romeo will be at the foot of the bed and just staring at me, or I'll catch him. I'll catch him
Oh
looking
yeah.
down the stairwell. We have kind of a
I've
steep
had
stairwell, and
I've
it's like,
had Binks do that. He's the one that will be on my bed staring at me in the middle of the night.
ooh, yeah. It's like
Mhm.
I'm not sure what they're thinking, or if they're just sensing our vibrations or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've often wondered about that. So familiars, they can come in many forms, right? So we also have familiars from our past. And I just wanted to say that each Samhain, I light a candle and I honor my past familiars, sending them love over the Rainbow Bridge. Do any of you do that as well?
I do. I've had several cats in particular. Also, it was my daughter's and we had this weird connection. Her Chihuahua that she insisted on having when she was a teenager, mid-teens, like 14, 15. And of course, the dog ended up being mine. I had this I still have this purple bike with a basket, and the dog would ride in there with me. And we became oddly connected. And so this will be my first salon without him. But last winter, he in because we live in the middle of nowhere, he went out at night to go to the bathroom, and a coyote snatched him up.
Oh,
It was
I'm sorry. Oh,
wonderful. So this year I do have like something special I'm going to do for him.
yeah. Oh, you better watch out for your cats too.
Oh, I
Coyotes
know. Yeah.
love cats.
Yeah.
Madam Pamita?
Well, for me, I was going to tell you my psychic story, but I didn't get a chance to. Can
Oh,
I
yeah,
tell
go ahead.
that?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's all right. Um, I definitely have a two-way connection, but I think all animals are psychic. I don't think just familiars are psychic. That's my experience. And my cats will often tell me things, and I will call them in psychically. I call them verbally, but I also call them in psychically. And one time, when Glinda didn't come home in the evening, that's very unusual. Once a year that happened. So I wasn't too terribly alarmed. But then the next evening when she didn't come in, I'm like, okay, something's up. And she told me, go for a walk. Like I could feel her. I knew she was okay. I knew she wasn't harmed. I didn't have a sense of treachery, danger, or anything like that. So I'm walking up the street and I hear this meow, and I heard her meow, and I'm like, holy crap. And I went over to this house. There was no one home, but I heard her calling me. And so it turns out she was on the roof, and there was a little awning she could jump down on, but she wasn't going to jump down there. So I called the police, and then they called the fire department, and they brought out the hook and ladder and got her down from that roof. She's
Oh my
such a
God.
diva. She wouldn't jump down.
I
So
Huh.
yeah,
didn't
I
know
feel like
they
there's
really do that.
yeah, so
Sorry.
there's this definitely a link where we call each other, and and other subtle things. But I say, like male, plants and animals, all living things have this ability to connect with us psychically. And in fact, my next book that's coming out is The Witch's Guide to Plant Familiars, and I'm talking about plant familiars in that book. So yeah.
Oh, yeah, that'll be cool. I'm looking forward to that. And vibrations. I feel like that word subtlety, it's subtle, but I think they're really aware of our vibrations.
Hmm.
Yes, yeah,
And and I guess, when we're feeling low or we're stressed, they can, help us and guide us. But I am wondering, Madam Pamita, what Glinda was doing on the roof, though.
Who the heck knows with her living her best life? I don't know. Wanted to have a higher view. Who knows? She just wanted to have an adventure, and
Yeah.
there was these big, beautiful trees. I mean, there were so many ways she could have come down, but she just spooked herself, I think, by being so high and looking down. So she just had to be a diva
Right.
and, and
It's
do
an
that.
attention-getting device, right?
Yeah. But to the point that all animals, even non-familiar animals, do have this psychic link. My little cuddlebug, Ozma, when I had COVID, she came and just sat and purred on me. And that purr is actually shown to be a frequency that heals, that this is a scientifically researched thing, that it heals things like broken bones, and it's a healing modality. And so her coming and lying on me and purring on me without, that's that sensitivity and that give and take. And she's not even what I would consider familiar. We're bonded, we are psychically linked, all of those things, but she's not really interested in magic. That's the difference.
Yeah.
She's not interested. She lends energy. I call her my healer, but she's not interested in making magic. Glinda absolutely is interested in making magic. So that's the difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
If
Romeo sits on my lap first thing in the morning, pretty early and does that purr too. And it's like it's louder in the morning than it is in the evening.
Mm.
Not sure why, but I like that. It does feel healing.
Yeah, it definitely is. I just wanted to answer the question about the past familiars,
Yeah.
uh, because I hadn't actually thought of it in that way, but I don't feel like with their deaths, my cats and I have been disconnected. You
Hmm.
know, I mean, I grieve horribly when they do die, but with them dead, I still feel them in my life, in my heart. They
Yeah.
Somebody else said something about them being teachers. The cats were amazing teachers for me, both spiritually and in terms of relationships, give and take and listening and things like that. And at my altar, I have my main altar is kind of a combined Buddhist and Irish polytheist altar, and so I have a number of bodhisattvas and saints or whatever, Martin Luther King, Thich Nhat
Hmm.
Hanh, and Fluffy. Fluffy
Hmm.
is his picture is up there, and he and I had the most intense connection. Um, and it's still there. Like I still honor them
Yeah.
every day. Yeah. And they're
Hmm.
still feeding me. Life would be
Oh,
very different without those fellows.
yeah. I love that. I guess my last question is, are your familiars magical? How can you define this sense that your cats or your birds are magical? From a feeling point of view, I guess that's how we sense but it's hard to put in words, right? I'm just posing the question. Monica, any thoughts?
Yeah, for me, it's more, I feel like they're a support network. Like they kind of keep me on course with my magic, and they're there to ground me and to help me out that way. Also with me with magic, and like I said, I'm down in the forest a lot. I've had other animals appear, and
Mm.
an eagle watching me, from the bank of the river, a deer peering through the trees. And I also believe that those animals have shown up to lend their magic in one way
Yeah.
or another.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. Yeah, especially where you are. There's so many wild animals.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
Well, for me, I think of my familiar as a partner in my magic. And just as like if you practice as a solitary or and you have the experiencing you've experienced practicing with a coven and with trusted other people. When you come together with a coven, you're each working on your own spell, but you bring your energy together. Perhaps you're working on something collectively. And I do think that when we work alongside familiars, we're both coming together. She's working on her magic, I'm working on my magic, but we're energetically supporting each other and exponentially empowering our magic.
Mm.
So she absolutely willingly and always, if she's in the house when I'm doing any magical thing, she'll come around. If I'm not, unless it's food, she doesn't really, she's on her own. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Right.
So she really is coming together as a teacher, lending her own energy, and together we exchange energy to help each other with our magical goals. I am positive she has magical goals. Do I know in detail what those are? No, probably having something to do with catching lizard tails or something. but yeah, so
Oh,
I think of it in that way. So are
yeah.
they absolutely are doing magic when that's what makes it a familiar, is that they're
Right.
lending their energy to your magic, whether a wild animal, a pet, a domestic like farm animal or whatever we're working with. It's because they're lending energy. So
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to put into words, but I was gonna say for me, and Romeo, there's a current of energy, an energetic current that's really strong. And it gets
Mm.
stronger when we're doing tarot or I'm doing spell work or it's very yeah, it's hard to put in words though, but thank you, Madam Pamita. Coming up on the end of our podcast, and I just wanted to thank you ladies for sharing your stories and thoughts and experiences about your familiars that you hold dear. And any last words?
Yeah, I'd like to say something. I'll be as quick as I can. What I was talking about before, the kind of grounding and joyfulness and loosening up that I feel when I'm out there with them, it's also helped me click on some of the Buddhist principles I read about and read about and read about and get a little sense of. But then, like the other day, I was suddenly out there, and I mean, it's not just the birds. I try to support the insects and all the other invertebrates and everything. So we're all kind of working together. It's a little tiny ecosystem. And I suddenly got, I am not actually separate from these beings,
Right.
and that their suffering is my suffering and their well-being is my well-being, and that I could feel my connection with the whole earth and all the life on it in a way that was just joy. It was not about worrying about the earth or anything like that. It was just like, oh my God, I am here. This is amazing.
Yeah, it's
So
definitely a symbiotic relationship.
yeah, yeah, and without them, I wouldn't have gotten that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Mael, and thank you again, Monica and Madam Pamita. Thank you for sharing your stories and your insights, and happy Halloween and happy Samhain to everybody. And thanks to all our listeners for joining us. Well, I'm going to sign off. So blessed be.
Blessed be.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.